I think you might have touched on this, and I don't know why they're asking for a suggested TRT dose, because I'm assuming if they'd on it, their doctor would have told them. Maybe this is
that's
between...
a whole nother ball game, brother. We can dive into.
So it says suggested TRT dose and frequency of injection, maybe.
Yep. So I can speak to my own thoughts.
So why would they be asking this if a doctor hasn't already? Why would they consider it if a doctor hasn't already?
Well,
told them?
put it this way: doctors aren't really educated on this, man. Unless you're an actual hormone specialist and
Like
an
endocrinologist.
A lot of them don't really know what they're doing, and I've seen this firsthand with my father. And I have a great family doctor, an unbelievable family doctor who's been my family doctor since I was born. I really respect him. He helps me out a ton. He gets me blood work when I want it. I'm very fortunate. My father went on HRT with him prescribing the TRT. I believe what they were doing was completely astronomical and didn't make any fucking sense. One shot every 3 weeks, so you spike your test very high, and all of a sudden by the end of 3 weeks you have no test left in you, and then pin it again. It doesn't really make fucking sense to me. Dosages without blood work doesn't really make fucking sense to me, because the reality is I have friends and athletes who are on TRT, or testosterone replacement therapy, for those that don't know what that is. And that's basically taking testosterone.
Sorry, I should have covered
No, that's
that
okay.
before.
I can talk to it. And the reality is most males in our generation will acquire it, and a lot of females as well. And I accepted that risk the second I took a needle, that I would probably be on it for the rest of my life. But that being said, even those who never take it, at some point in your life now, you're probably going to want it to keep your heart and brain healthy. Now, dosage-wise and what the problem is with that industry is, like I said, they just don't truly understand it. So they don't understand half-lives of drugs. They don't understand all this kind of stuff. They're just like, yes, you need this amount. This is what literature says to take, and we'll keep you healthy by doing this. Is it better than not doing it? For sure. Is it optimal? Absolutely not. So, I mean, I have athletes who run TRT at 50 to 65 milligrams per week, and I have athletes that run 250 milligrams per week to stay normal. That's up to the human body.
That's just normal?
In normal ranges. Is 250 milligrams a week for most people going to keep you in a normal range? Absolutely not. I call that, in my world and in our bodybuilding world, we call that sports TRT. So that's going to keep you above the normal range, but I would argue
Your
not.
baseline is just higher than a...
Yes. So
natural.
if you got your blood work tested, your testosterone would come back out of range on the plus side. So you'd be above normal ranges. Do I think it's going to put you in a place where it's super, super negative for your health? No. And that's why guys can run it. Do I think that's what most people should do? No. I think you should stay in a physiological range where your body wants to be in, whereas I would argue high side of normal. Are you waking up with a morning erection? You should be. And if you're not, there's some shit. Now, can other factors affect that, like stress and
shitty diet?
100%. Yeah. That stuff can affect it as well. But again, if you look at your hormones and your testosterone's low, you're going to want to get optimized. And like I said, maybe you need 75 milligrams a week, because I know a lot of people that take that. Maybe you need 150, right? So I would say normal ranges are anywhere from 50 to 150 to keep most people in the normal range. Some people might need 200, 250, etc. Now, I've had people tell me that they'll stay in a normal range at 400. Fuck off. No, you will not. Absolutely no, you will
like
not.
A full cycle.
I've seen it once, and that was somebody who had a severe testicular injury in their past, and literally between communication and signaling from the brain to the gonads just was completely different, and they actually did require a little bit more, and it was about 400 milligrams a week to stay normal. Now, again, putting 400 milligrams a week of an exogenous source in you, that person also will have complications that come with running 400. Just because their test stays normal there doesn't mean putting the oil and other things in you is not going to be a concern, right? So you have to monitor those things, because like you said, estrogen may be a little different. So there's a lot of different pieces at play there, but for the most part, 50 to 150 I would call normal. In our world, when we're just working with athletes, usually it's like 100 to 150 is TRT. 200, 250 is sports TRT. I cap it like 100 to 200 milligrams. That's normal, is what I would say for me to dose people at to keep them in range. 250 plus is outside of that range, with 250 being sports TRT.
And the frequency of injecting to hit that target weekly, would you do that times.
I'm glad you
brought.
that up. The more frequent injections, the more stable your dosing is. The more stable your bloods are going to be with testosterone, right? As a male and as a female, we get surges of hormones daily, and I try to mimic that as best as possible. So it's a more newfound method that's being used in the world of HRT, but microdosing testosterone, and you can actually do this. With other steroids too. If you're doing blasts, is microdose them. So you use a smaller syringe, like an insulin syringe that you would take the peptides with, or growth hormone, very, very tiny needles. And you just put it sub-Q, so into like belly fat. You don't go a big injection into your muscle, and you take it daily. That's how I do my TRT, and I actually find it way easier and convenient because I'm a very routine.
Does it break down in the fat cell though?
No, so it slowly releases, right? The drug is estered for a period of time, but yeah, you can take subcutaneous anabolics.
Learning every day.
And androgens, you definitely can. And like I said, there's literature on this now, and this is being practiced by a lot of HRT clinics throughout the world, and specifically
probably reduce scarring as well, eh?
Big time. Less scar and so forth. So it's and like I said, I find it convenient because it's really. I'm not somebody, believe it or not, and I've done, like I said, I did my first cycle in 2016, and I didn't abuse drugs ever, and I still don't. I don't enjoy injecting intramuscularly. I don't love pinning, to be honest with you. I can't stand it, actually, and if I could have the same results without doing it, I would love to not do it. But I understand that it's part of the game, and it's something I need to do, and like I said, I will be on TRT forever. For myself, I much prefer doing the small dosing more frequently. So I find it convenient. Like I said, I'm a routine guy, right? So what I do is I'll fill 10 syringes to the mark that I need, which I take 150 to 200, depending where I'm at with bloods and so forth a week. Right now I'm on 150, like I said, and I'll fill a syringe that will give me 150 milligrams per week. And then what I'll do is I'll dose that daily. So I have a very consistent, like the body would, surge of testosterone daily to keep my levels very stable and steady. I also find it convenient because I load those syringes, I put them in my nightstand, I shower before bed, I go to my nightstand, I wipe with my alcohol swab, inject, move on, right?
I know maybe this is just too much information. Are you replacing the tip or anything like that?
So this is where things get a little wild and a little crazy.
In my head, all I'm hearing is Greg Valentino dropping a needle and having to cut his arm off.
Yeah, definitely not that case.
Sorry, this shit freaks me out. I got to go for my life insurance. I got to get my annual blood test. I just turn because they got to pull like 3 or 4 fucking vials.
And there's people that are going to disagree with what I'm about to say.
Okay,
I have a friend who is a dentist and very, very structured in his practice and the way that they do things and so forth, and he uses PEDs, and we've talked about this, and
that tooth is coming out. Yeah.
Well, for the reality, I mean, we've had conversations. He didn't understand PEDs, and I very recently helped him understand it more, and what he was doing was ass backwards to what he should have been doing over the years, and we looked at his blood work, and we came up with some things, and then when I had mentioned this, he was like, wait a second, what? And I'm like, you're going to say that I'm doing fucked up shit while I'm sitting on the other side of the table saying you're doing fucked up shit? You know what I mean? So I'll say this right now, and the way I do it, I reuse insulin syringes that are going sub-Q.
Okay.
A diabetic will reuse a needle to pin their insulin for 6 months. Oh, yeah. Or prick their finger.
Oh, I guess. You do that anyways when you
every
check
day.
Your shit.
And they pay for those needles and those needle tips. The insulin is covered. A lot of people aren't getting covered by their lancing devices, their lancets, the tips for their Humalog or their Lantus insulin pens, and they reuse them, right? Mm-hmm. Now, again, clean injection site, clean needle tip, which I do wipe the tip of my needle with an alcohol swab. Is it the safest thing in the world? No. Am I going to tell you should do that? That's a decision you make. Okay. For me, it's efficient, convenient. Like I said, I load my 150 in a syringe. It's a tiny little needle just going beneath the skin. It's not going intramuscularly where I'm going to get a big muscular infection if something happened. Have I ever had a single complication with it? Never. Myself, personally. Now, have I seen people have complications pinning intramuscularly without reusing syringes? Many times. I'm very fortunate that I am pretty sanitized in the way that I do those injections, because you should be. Yeah. And I would never, ever, ever recommend reusing a needle tip from an actual intramuscular injection. That's crackhead shit. Stay away from that.
And public bathrooms and stuff like that.
Yeah, and again, people are already going to judge me for what I just said, and I don't really give a fuck. I'm educated on this. I'm making a decision to do that myself. Do you have to do that? No. Again, it's very, like I said, I believe that microdosing your HRT is a very, very efficient way. Now, is it annoying to have to fill an insulin syringe with the amount that you need daily? Yes, because they're so small, the needles. It takes a long time to fill that fucking even little amount. Versus the way
Are you drawing through a 2930 gauge?
So that's what most people would have to do, because the other way to do it, you would have to actually pull into a big syringe, take the back of the insulin syringe off, make sure you don't set it on something, so you stand it up by the base of it.
Any of this shit dirty. Don't cough on it. Don't nothing.
So, and again, this is like, when I'm doing this, it's like fucking surgery. I have a bunch of things out, bunch of sanitary cloths on the table. Like I use paper towel. I set everything down. I keep everything out of the range.
Clinic.
Basically, and then I basically draw through my 3 ml syringe, and I'll fill that, and then I'll actually pour using a bigger tip into the back of the insulin syringe. And I'll just talk about the whole process right now for anybody who wants to try this or wants to go this route. I don't really care. So you
just please be just coming from. I don't have the medical knowledge that he does, but my background, I took a lot of interest in it for when I was fighting. I'm hearing so many different places to introduce bacteria.
Yep.
And if you don't think you think I'm getting over paranoid, Google Greg Valentine.
Yep.
It was Valentine or Valentino? Valentino. Look at his arm, because going back to that mindset, he was so insistent, I got to have the biggest arms in the world. He picked a syringe off the ground after dropping it. The tip just touched for a second, and he stuck it in his fucking arm.
Don't ever fucking do that.
When you're so fucked up that you're literally, like you said, crackhead shit, I don't care where this needle's been, I got to stick it in. He had to cut a piece, drain, and then cut pieces of necrotic tissue out of his body.
Yep. It can happen.
That's the opposite of what you're trying to do.
Yep.
So when he's telling you these protocols got to be super clean, he's not fucking kidding. Don't put it down on your counter. If you have to, like, clean it, sterilize it, pull some. Oh my God! Like,
and keep in mind too, like for me, I have a prescription for HRT, so this stuff is made in an actual billion-dollar facility. Yes. I know where it's coming from, right? I've had, like I said, I've had clients get abscesses from injections that were intramuscular from fucking bathtub gear. And
does that actually happen? You hear the jokes like it was made in a big bath somewhere. Maybe not bathtub, but
it's not bathtub, but definitely there's some sketchy labs out there for sure where people are trying to make a buck. And I mean, I've seen it, right? I've seen people opt to use the $30 bottle of steroid instead of the stuff that's a little more expensive, made in a real facility or whatever. And sometimes shit can happen. I personally try to avoid that as much as I possibly can. And but yeah, that being said, so. Where was I going with that now? I lost my train of thought.
You were going through the process.
Oh, yeah. So, like, with my...
You said you take a 3...
So, I take a 3 mil intramuscular needle with, like, an 18 gauge tip, a big tip that I can pull oil into very quickly. I fill the syringe. I open the back of the insulin needle, so I stand it up. And, by the way, there is actually YouTube videos on this. I've seen them before, and I've sent them to athletes for a visual. Or I've actually taken a video for an athlete to show them what I do, because, again, I want them to do it right.
Yes.
And they make the decision on how they do it. And I have people who will draw. They refuse to reuse that insulin syringe, which I'm like, hey, I respect the fuck out of that. I've been doing this a long time. I'm just, again, efficiency for me is very key. And I'm not concerned about the infection side because I've never seen it, never had it. I'm okay. Now, again, if you want to do that, that's totally fine as well. I respect the shit out of somebody really wanting to make themselves extra safe. So fill the syringe, 18 gauge. All of a sudden you pull the back off the insulin needle, stand it up. I personally try, even on a clean surface, I don't set it down. I don't want that tip that's going to be in the oil touching anything at all. It's going to be suspended in the fucking air, and I'm not going to cough or breathe, and I'll throw out the syringe if I do. Well, I'll breathe, obviously, but you know what I'm saying.
It's not on it yet.
And then basically I'll put the needle in the back of that open syringe, and I'll pour to the mark on the syringe that I need to get to. Then I plug the back of the syringe with the actual back of the plunger, but I don't push it in, because if you stand it up and push it in, you're going to push the oil out. So you just plug it. Now you turn it to the point the air bubble, because there will be an air bubble, goes to the top. You sit it there for a second, and then you push the air out. Once the air is pushed out, now that syringe is ready to be used. I'll do that, like I said, with 10 syringes at once for 10 weeks worth of my TRT.
Is that like an hour of your time?
Yep. 45 minutes or so, but I only do it once every 10 weeks versus 10 minutes per day, right? Trying to fill an insulin syringe and doing this. That's why I do it. So then I just put those in a bag with my alcohol wipes, leave them on the side of my bed, and I shower first, then I wipe with my alcohol wipe, and I do my TRT before bed. Same time every day. It's convenient. I go to bed every day I'm going to bed. I'm not going to forget my shot, right? Again, do you need to do it that way? No, that's how I do it. And I don't really give a fuck if you think it's wrong or right.
I appreciate you sharing that.
But like I said, I mean, I've also had athletes who are very, very diligent with things and use normal gear and on cycle doing intramuscular injections, get some sort of infection. Now, do I know they were absolutely being as clean as possible? Maybe they just trained and they just pinned a needle right after they trained. You can get an abscess from injections intramuscularly for sure, right?
Just going too fast, I'm told.
Well, yeah, or going too fast, dirty gear. If it's not a good lab, and
even good to start
if there's
with,
something in the gear, right? Maybe there was some sort of bacteria in it. Now, most people will have benzyl alcohol and this stuff to kill bacteria in the gear. There should be that. What if the amounts aren't right? What if the person building making the gear doesn't truly know the right amounts, or they're cutting corners to save costs?
So there's alcohol in the solution.
Yeah.
So then why doesn't that kill muscle tissue on injection site? Because if you ever had an open wound and you rub alcohol on it,
it burns, but it doesn't mean it's killing tissue, right? It's killing bacteria.
Oh, interesting.
And it's such a, you need to think about the trace amounts, right? Like, it might be in a full vial of 2% alcohol solution. So it's very, very low. I mean, they do this with tons of other things in clinical settings that you're injecting with yourself. There probably will be some sort of alcohol in there or some sort of antibacterial in there to prevent bacteria. Does that mean it's always going to work? No, right? And again, if you're taking shortcuts and trying to save money and doing all this stuff and skipping those steps, you're probably going to have some people that have some issues, and I've seen it firsthand. And again, for me, I'll just say this straight up. The most amount of injection sites that I've ever seen problems come with are the quads. Most people like pinning their quads. It's easy access. It's right here. You look at the injection site, you put a needle in your leg.
There's so many blood vessels in your quads.
And I'll say this much. I personally have never put a needle in my quad. Not once, and I tell every single person that.
And you got a lot of quad.
And that's so that was another reason. That was another reason for me why I never did. Sometimes people get scar tissue buildup and you see like little bumps and stuff like that. I have very nice legs, and I say that without an egotistical approach. I have very good legs. They were my best body part when I was still competing as a bodybuilder. I never ever wanted to lose lines or disturb what I had in my lower body.
Smooth them out kind of thing.
Yeah, and have any kind of scar tissue buildup or lumps. So I just avoided it. I also had heard a lot of horror stories of people not being able to walk for 4 days from a bad shot. And then, like I said, I've seen friends in the bodybuilding world, maybe not athletes, I've seen athletes pin their quads and have a really bad shot, whether it was from dirty gear or hitting a wrong site. But I have a horror story of a kid I knew. I wouldn't call him a friend. It was somebody I competed against, but we were acquaintances. Yeah. And he got it was something crazy, like 18 mils of pus drained from an abscess on his leg, where a doctor used massive horse syringes, put a needle right into the wound, and was pulling out green pus for like 18 fucking mils of pus from this thing. And that's disgusting and fucked up. And you let that shit happen, that's where you look at the situation you're talking about, having to get actual muscle tissue cut out.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing, right? So it's no fucking joke why when you're getting surgery, everything is so sterile and sterilized and stuff, because you're, again, putting shit in your body. If there's a foreign bacteria, that can cause a cascade of events that you are going to fucking regret. So do you have to avoid usage? No. Again, I coach a ton of enhanced bodybuilders. I myself use PEDs and I'm on HRT and those kind of things. But it's something to be aware of for sure, and be diligent with your use. Again, do I do things with my HRT that some people might claim to be fucking crazy? For sure I do. Do I think it's a giant risk? I've decided it's not. I've never seen it. I've never had an issue. I've never even had a bad shot with it.
Interesting.
And I've been doing it a long time.